Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This video is addressing S6 students for Applied Linguistics. We're gonna see today in this video another theory of learning, which is the innate theory. We've seen behaviorism and how behaviorism sees learning. We've seen that learning for behaviorists is a matter of imitation, repetition, and habit formation. And so the learner imitates what he or she hears, then repeats what he or she hears, gets reinforcements, and then forms habits. The learner, as we've seen, is not creative, just repeats what he or she hears. For the innate theory, also known as nativist, etc., of language acquisition, was developed in the mid-20th century by Noam Chomsky. It emerged, this innate theory emerged as a reaction against the behaviorist language learning theory and contradicted its model at arm's length point of data structure. It mainly contradicts behaviorism when behaviorism says or claims that learners are passive in the learning process, that learners just repeat what they hear, that learners are not creative. The innate theory says the opposite. Says learners, or claims that learners don't only repeat what they hear, don't only imitate adults, and here we're speaking about, by the way, language acquisition. You're acquiring your L1, and your L1, we say L1 about any language that you acquire, which is your mother tongue. And we use the verb acquire or acquisition with your L1. You don't see you learn your L1 because you don't go to the classroom and sit for classes in order to learn your L1. Your L1, you pick it up from the environment. You pick it up from your parents, your family, the environment, your neighbors. We pick it up as a child from your environment. That's why we speak about language acquisition. You acquire it, you don't learn it. Learning tends to be formal. There's a teacher, there's a classroom, but acquisition tends to be informal, tends to be natural. So with language acquisition, children do not only imitate what adults say, they don't only repeat what adults say, but this innate theory says they are active, they are creative. We're going to see how. The theoretical assumptions underlying the innate theory are as follows. Language acquisition is innately determined. That is, children are biologically programmed for language learning. Children are born with a special ability to systematically discover for themselves the underlying rules of a language system. And here I want to underline they discover for themselves. In other words, children are not passive learners. They don't just repeat and imitate, but they discover for themselves the underlying rules of a language system. When they are acquiring, when a child is acquiring his or her L1, he or she is trying to work out the rules of this language he or she is acquiring. He tries to explore this language he or she is acquiring. We're going to see an example in a minute. This special ability enables them to learn the complexities of a language in a relatively short period of time. Environmental differences and factors may be associated with some variation in the rate, in the speed of language acquisition. There are factors that may slow down, for example, or speed up, or the opposite, speed up the rate, the pace of language acquisition. If, for example, the child is not exposed to his or her L1 at a regular basis for some reason, then maybe the rate of his language acquisition might be slower than another child who is exposed to his L1 more regularly. Evidence used to support Chomsky's innate theory. The poverty of the stimulus argument. The first argument in favor of this statement is concerned with the logical problem of language acquisition, which the behaviorists fail to recognize. This argument is known as the poverty of the stimulus argument. In other words, for behaviorism, a child, in order to acquire his or her L1, he always needs a stimulus from the outside world, from his parents, his or her parents, for example. A child waits for the stimulus, and then when he or she gets it, he produces a response. And that's how learning takes place. A child is not active, is not creative, it just waits for the stimulus to happen. But for the innate theory, the child takes the initiative in order to explore and to understand his or her L1. He or she does not wait passively for stimulus. He or she does not passively wait for somebody to teach him or her, or to tell him or her everything about this L1 that's been acquired. Almost all children successfully learn their native language at a time in life when they would not be expected to learn anything else so complicated. Children, we're always speaking about the innate theory. Children are by no means systematically instructed. Instructed means taught, to teach all language by parents. Parents do not teach their children everything about the language, about the L1, but the child, him or herself, tries, as I said, to find out for him or herself the underlying rules of that language. I'm going to explain in next slide what that means. For example, let me explain now. Children produce words they never heard before. For behaviorism, children, any words that they produce, they must have heard it before. That's what behaviorism claims. Any words, any sentences that a child produces, he or she must have heard it before. Because they can't come up with their own words. They just imitate what they hear. They just repeat what they hear. But for this innate theory, children can produce words they have never heard before. Example, I put it. I put it. Of course, I put it is not correct. And so, when a child says, I put it, he can't have heard it from anyone. Certainly, the child did not hear it from his parents, for example, because I put it is incorrect. So what happens is that the child, he heard his or her, his parents say, I washed, I watched, I looked, I decided, I started. And when the child was internalizing, was listening, was hearing those words, he was also at the same time trying to work out the rules of the past tense. So he was like, wait a minute. My parents say I washed, I watched, I started, I decided. So when he's faced with the word, new verb, like put, he or she says, I put it. As you can see here, although this is a mistake, it is creative. The child is being creative. The child is being active. That's why when a child says, little child, not baby, little child says, I put it, his or her parents would say, bravo, that's good. But don't say I put it, say I put. I mean, they like it that he or she said, I put it, because it shows that the child is actively engaged in this language acquisition process. The child is being creative. He or she comes up with his or her own words based on the rules of the language. The fact that children come up with words, come up with sentences they have never heard before, is a strong piece of evidence, against behaviorism that claims that everything and anything that children produce is a matter of repetition. They're just repeating what they have heard before. So this means the fact that children produce words they have never heard before cannot be the result of imitation, but must be the result of a creative process. Thank you. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.